Good early afternoon. We are live. I'm Andy Andrews. You've joined us on the Blue Plate Special, and I have fiberglass all over my desk. Where did that come from, Matt?
The ceiling, of course.
Yeah. Well, we changed. You changed microphones, right?
I did. So that was from the ceiling tiles.
At least it's on my desk and not in your eyes.
Or in your coffee.
Yeah. Anyway, we are glad you are here. We are in Orange Beach, Alabama. It looks like a pretty day out there. Is it pretty okay? I mean, it hasn't rained yet, has it? Wait till we get to the summer. Then it like pours down at 2 o'clock, and then it's over at 2:45, and then it gets hot. So, Chris Comer, good afternoon. Chris, I got your message, and I'm gonna get back to you. I'm just like, it's just crazy. Dave Uko, how are you doing? You need this break. We're going to read you a story today, Dave. Marcy Costa Taylor, how you doing? Sunny and cool, Pasco, Washington. Still freezing at night, but the trees are budding out. We get our weather report from Pasco, Washington every Tuesday and Thursday from Marcy. Hey, Heather Olson, still snowing in Utah. I was wondering about you the other day. I hadn't seen you. Some ski resorts have gotten over 800 inches this season. Okay, what's 800 times? What's 800 divided by 12? Come on, quick! You're the genius.
66.
That's what I just said.
6 feet. How about that?
What?
I said 66.6 feet. So that's a bad amount of snow.
Wow, that is a lot of snow. I mean, you wouldn't expect Santa Claus to get that much. That's crazy. Judith DeWitt, good morning. 34 degrees there. Wow. Well, it was 75 degrees when I came in this morning at 5 o'clock. It was 75 degrees. Danny Kilpatrick, hey, we got people in the studio here. Kevin Perkins, the old man. Kevin, you're going to love what we're doing today. And I need to send you a commercial. We need to get this commercial and show it to you like Thursday. Let's show it Thursday. Got a commercial for Tucker ATV and Office Supply that we did. Ron Reams, good afternoon. And beautiful cloudy day in Mobile. High temperature today should be around 84 degrees. I always laugh when I'm reading something like that from Ron Reams. He's like a broadcasting news legend in this area. So when I see Ron Reams, it's 84 degrees and cloudy outside. That's great. Chris Comer. Yeah, got great pictures behind us. I got my shirt from Sand Dollar Lifestyles, the cornerstone of the wharf down here. And if you visit us, you got to visit them. Margaret Davis Haupt from windy, warm Northeast Mississippi. Let's just don't get too windy there again. Okay, Eva Jean Hodge, good afternoon. And Eva Jean's in Aiken, North Carolina, right? Elkin, North Carolina, yes, North Carolina. And in the studio today, we have a battle royal from the Midwest, Missouri versus Wisconsin. Everybody in here is from Missouri or Wisconsin. How about that? So, got the Show Me State and the Freeze Me State. Yeah. Sandy Atkins, happy Tuesday from hot and dry El Salvador. What do you do, Sandy? Sandy watches us quite often from El Salvador, and I'm assuming that's not like Lebanon, Tennessee, or Paris, Texas. You're not from like El Salvador, Georgia, are you? I mean, I'm thinking this is like the El Salvador. Verna Harland from Canada. Where in Canada? Because there's different places in Canada, you know. I mean, there's places in Canada that are English-speaking and places that are French-speaking. I did a show there inadvertently in French-speaking Canada one time. It was inadvertent because I was with Kenny Rogers and I was doing the whole tour except for Quebec. In Quebec, they had hired a French-speaking comedian. And so I was going to just stay at the hotel that night But I decided, hey, I'm going to go eat with everybody and see what a French comedian is like. And as we ate, I never saw anybody that I thought looked like a French comedian. And it got closer and closer, and sure enough, he didn't show up. And C.K. Spurlock and Kenny Rogers came up to me and they said, hey, we need you to go on tonight. And I said, where? They said, here, we need you to do your show tonight. And I said, where's the French guy? And they said, he didn't show up. Now, I don't know how you blow off a Kenny Rogers date, but evidently he did, or got stuck in traffic. But I said, no, you can stand up there and sing the pick to find time to leave me, and everybody just goes, but me, I got to talk. I mean, they got to understand me. And I said, they're not going to understand me. This will be horrible. And Kenny started laughing and said, I know it will be. And see, now that's something you got to understand. He wasn't being rude. That's just the default for an entertainer watching another entertainer, because entertainers, it's kind of an odd thing. Entertainers, they want to see something incredible or a disaster. Either way is fine. I mean, they are satisfied with either, right? That's what I like. I want to see something incredible or a disaster, right? If I'm going to hear a singer, I want to hear Andrea Bocelli or the guy who can't carry a tune, and thinks he's great. Either way is fine with me. I just don't want to see something mediocre. And boy, he didn't see anything mediocre that night. I mean, Kenny and the band had seen me a million times. They didn't even come out of the dressing rooms anymore when I'm on. But that night, they were standing in the arena around the back wall. And I saw them, and I knew I was in trouble when I get introduced, because, they have the whoever's the best local DJ in these places is who MCs the shows. And this guy, full arena, this guy goes, Andy Andrews. And I'm like, oh my God. And I mean, I did like my 30 minutes and it was weird because I would do a line and I would pause. I've done it so much that I'm pausing for the laugh. And then there was no laugh from the arena. And then Kenny and 10 guys in the band would just like collapse in the back. You would hear it, and that went on for like 30 minutes. It was horrifying. But Kenny said it was probably the best show he'd ever seen me do. How did I get off on that? Oh, Verna. So you're close to Ottawa. Gotcha. Okay. And Sandy is from San Salvador, El Salvador. Wow. All right. Well, that means we have like at least, 4 different countries watching today. We got El Salvador, Canada, the United States, and Wisconsin. So 4 of them. Wow. Hey, today we are going to be recording. You get to watch a recording and see how we do this of something for wisdomharbor.com. And Brendan Gorman watching from Kansas. Dust in the wind. That's what I think of. Everything I think of Kansas. Other people think Jayhawks. I think dust in the wind. So we're going to be recording for Wisdom Harbor. It's like a 23-minute story, and you want to hear some convoluted thinking on deciding now's the time to do this. This story is kind of a Christmas story, but it's set in June, early summer, and because it's Easter, we're going to do the Velveteen Rabbit. So how is that? All right, so no crying out there. I don't want any crying. Don't anybody trying to make me cry or anything. But this is a classic story, and we hope you enjoy this. And then you can hear this when it's released on the on wisdomharbor.com. And let me get here to this. You get to see, and this is why we have the different microphone. Usually we have that kind up here that you can't see when we're filming, and when we have have guests in here, that camera takes that guest, and this one takes me, and Matt's got a microphone in there, and if it wasn't for the COVID supply shortage, we would have 2 more cameras. We're wanting one that shoots straight down onto the table, and one over there that shoots a different person. And so when we're doing conversations, we use those microphones. And so there's another one here that comes out of that hole in the ceiling. And you guys can't see the hole in the ceiling, so just trust me, there is one. Okay, Roger Luker. Hey, buddy, how are you doing? And oh my gosh, look, here's 2 of my favorite people coming in here, Jeff and Matt. This Jeff is our political animal here, and Matt's just the father of 2 superstar kids. You know, I mean, Matt's how big is Chandler? He's like 7 feet 6 inches. I mean, he's like 6'4", isn't he? And 230? 240? Okay. And he'll be a senior this year. And he's a junior now. Yeah, junior now. He'll be a senior next year. And he's the tight end. And Roger Luker, I know you're watching. And wait till you see Chandler. I mean, Roger, big football guy. And I grew up with Roger. Roger was my oldest friend. I mean, not my oldest friend. I have some friends older than him. He's my longest lasting friend. Because his mom and my mom were pregnant together, and they were best friends. And we were born like a month apart, and they threw us in a playpen together. And so I guess we're each other's oldest friends. And we have people watching today from 4 different countries. Guys, I'm just kind of catching you up since you just came in. There's 5 countries. Debbie Drake. So we've got from the United States, from El Salvador, from Canada, Wisconsin, and now Mississippi. So 5 different countries. And I've got to tell them about Matt's other superstar kid. She is in the 10th grade, and she's the shortstop on the state champion Orange Beat Makos. And I mean, I'm telling you, and the game's at 5 today, right? I will be there. I put my chair in the back of my car. So, I mean, I'm ready. I'm a fan. I'm like some people, and I used to like Alabama. I used to like the SEC, but right now, I am a high school girls fast pitch softball fanboy. I mean, these girls are unbelievable. And Daigle's didn't she have lead the state the past 2 years in steals? Okay, all right. How many steals does she have this year right now as we're in this year? You had to do hands because I can't hear you. She's at 102? Oh, for her career. Okay. Well, I mean, but this team is unbelievable. And the other day, I was with Matt, and so his daughter gets on first base, And so I'm gonna film it. Because I want to show this to Austin and Adam. And so I've got the video going, and I said, should I turn it on now? Is she gonna steal? And Matt said, yeah, first pitch, she's gone. And sure enough, I mean, she stole second, slides in, pops up, steals second. And so I said, is she going to steal third? He said, yeah, keep it rolling. And so I just kept it rolling. But she didn't get to steal third because the 8th grader at the plate jacked it over the fence. I mean, this team is unbelievable. I'm just telling you. Yeah. Okay, we're about to read. We're going to do a story for. I got to thinking about the Orange Beach Makos, and I'm discombobulated now. I can't even think about what I'm doing. But we're recording a story.
The Velveteen Mako.
Yeah, we should change it. The Velveteen Mako. We could do a version of that at some point. But this is for wisdomharbor.com. And we're reading The Velveteen Rabbit. So I know you guys probably came in here expecting something like strange. And so, well, reading about a rabbit, that's pretty strange. So, and we can certainly make it strange. The good thing about this is that Matt is excellent at editing. So if I screw up, he's got it. Okay. So we ready? You think you're going to be able to sit through The Velveteen Rabbit? Huh? Okay. And when I get through, I'm going to come out there and I'm going to talk to anybody who falls asleep. I'm just telling you. This is, I wonder, can you find out, give me some stats on The Velveteen Rabbit before I start. How many has it sold? How many, what's the scoop on The Velveteen Rabbit?
Let's see, I'm looking it up.
And I want to know how many stuffed rabbits have sold. Because merchandising's where it's at.
I can tell you it was written in 1922 from the UK. There's been a number of film adaptations since 1973 when it was first shot on 16 millimeter film.
Wow. Film adaptations.
Let's see.
Okay. Let's do it. You ready?
All right.
If you can't find any more stats than that, I mean, I would expect you just to make them up. So The Velveteen Rabbit has sold 17 million in hardback and 34 million in paperback. They have a merchandising tally now of almost $1 billion in little Velveteen Rabbits that come in 3 sizes and 14 different colors. They're very, they're all over the stores at Christmas time. And when online shopping became a thing, when the internet happened in online shopping, and the Velveteen Rabbit sales actually tripled. I made it up, but it sounds good, doesn't it? Okay, here we go. You ready, Matthew? The Velveteen Rabbit by Marjorie Williams. Now, am I supposed to do that, or don't I just say the Wisdom Harbor audio thing?
Yeah, I think the Wisdom Harbor stuff in bold.
Okay, so why did we have the other part up there?
It was just part of the document,
Okay, all right. Here we go. Wisdom Harbor Audio presents The Velveteen Rabbit by Marjorie Williams, narrated by Andy Andrews. There was once a Velveteen Rabbit, and in the beginning he was really splendid. He was fat and bunchy as a rabbit should be. His coat was spotted brown and white. He had real thread whiskers, and his ears were lined with pink sateen. On Christmas morning, when he sat wedged in the top of the boy's stocking, with a sprig of holly between his paws, the effect was charming. There were other things in the stocking, nuts and oranges and a toy engine and chocolate almonds and a clockwork mouse. But the rabbit was quite the best of all. For at least 2 hours the boy loved him. And then aunts and uncles came to dinner, and there was a great rustling of tissue paper and unwrapping of parcels, and in the excitement of looking at all the new presidents. Okay. All right, where do you want me back up to?
For at least? Just back up. Yeah, for at least 2 hours.
Okay. For at least 2 hours, the boy loved him. And then aunts and uncles came to dinner, and there was a great rustling of tissue paper and unwrapping of parcels. And in the excitement of looking at all the new presents, the Velveteen Rabbit was forgotten. For a long time, he lived in the toy cupboard or on the nursery floor, and no one thought very much about him. He was naturally shy, and being only made of velveteen, some of the more expensive toys quite snubbed him. The mechanical toys were very superior and looked down upon everyone else. They were full of modern ideas and pretended they were real. The model boat, who had lived through 2 seasons and lost most of his paint, caught the tone from them and never missed an opportunity of referring to his rigging in technical terms. The rabbit could not claim to be a model of anything, for he didn't know that real rabbits existed. He thought they were all stuffed with sawdust, like himself, and he understood that sawdust was quite out of date and should never be mentioned in modern circles. Even Timothy, the jointed wooden lion, who was made by the disabled soldiers and should have had broader views, put on airs and pretended he was connected with the government. Between them all, the poor little rabbit was made to feel himself very insignificant and commonplace, and the only person who was kind to him at all was the Skin Horse. The Skin Horse had lived longer in the nursery than any of the others. He was so old that his brown coat was bald in patches and showed the seams underneath, and most of the hairs in his tail had been pulled out to string bead necklaces. He was wise, for he had seen a long succession of mechanical toys arrive to boast and swagger, and by break their mainsprings and pass away. And he knew they were only toys, and would never turn into anything else. For nursery magic is very strange and wonderful, and only those playthings that are old and wise and experienced, like the Skin Horse, understand all about it. "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day when they were lying side by side near the nursery fender before Nana came in to tidy the room. "Does it mean having things that buzz inside you and a stick-out handle?" "Real isn't how you're made," said the Skin Horse. "It's a thing that happens to you when a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you. Then you become real." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the Skin Horse, for he was always truthful. "When you are real, you don't mind being hurt." "Does it happen all at once, like being wound up?" he asked, "or bit by bit?" "It doesn't happen all at once," said the Skin Horse. "You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't often happen to people who break easily or have sharp edges or have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, and your eyes drop out, and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand." "I suppose you are real?" said the rabbit, and then wished he had not said it, for he thought the Skin Horse might be sensitive. But the Skin Horse only smiled. "The boy's uncle made me real," he said. "That was a great many years ago, but once you are real, you can't become unreal again. It lasts for always." The rabbit sighed. He thought it would be a long time before this magic called real happened to him. He longed to become real, to know what it felt like, and yet the idea of growing shabby and losing his eyes and whiskers was rather sad. He wished that he could become it without these uncomfortable things happening to him. There was a person called Nana who ruled the nursery. Sometimes she took no notice of the playthings lying about, and sometimes... Back to that sentence. Okay? Sometimes she took no notice of the playthings lying about, and sometimes, for no reason whatsoever, she went swooping about like a great wind and hustled them away in cupboards. She called this tidying up, and the playthings all hated it, especially the tin ones. The rabbit didn't mind it so much, for wherever he was thrown, he came down softly. One evening, when the boy was going to bed, he couldn't find the china dog that always slept with him. Nana was in a hurry, and it was too much trouble to hunt for china dogs at bedtime, so she simply looked about her, and seeing that the toy cupboard door stood open, she made a swoop. "Here," she said, "take your old bunny. He'll do to sleep with you." And she dragged the rabbit out by one ear and put him into the boy's arms. That night, and for many nights after, the Velveteen Rabbit slept in the boy's bed. At first he found it rather uncomfortable, for the boy hugged him very tightly, and sometimes he rolled over on him, and sometimes he pushed him so far under the pillow that the rabbit could scarcely breathe. And he missed, too, those long moonlight hours in the nursery when all the house was silent, and his talks with the Skin Horse. But very soon he grew to like it, for the boy used to talk to him, and made nice tunnels for him under the bedclothes that he said were like the burrows the real rabbits lived in. And they had splendid games together, in whispers, when Nana had gone away to her supper and left the nightlight burning on the mantelpiece. And when the boy dropped off to sleep, the rabbit would snuggle down close under his little warm chin and dream, with the boy's hands clasped close around him all night long. And so time went on, and the little rabbit was very happy, so happy that he never noticed how his beautiful velveteen fur was getting shabbier and shabbier, and his tail coming unsewn, and all the pink rubbed off his nose where the boy had kissed him. Spring came, and they had long days in the garden, for wherever the boy went, the rabbit went too. He had rides in the wheelbarrow, and picnics on the grass, and lovely fairy huts built for him under the raspberry canes behind the flower border. And once, when the boy was called away suddenly to go out to tea, the rabbit was left out on the lawn until long after dusk. And Nana... Okay. And once, when the boy was called away suddenly to go out to tea, the rabbit was left out on the lawn until long after dusk, and Nana had to come and look for him with the candle because the boy couldn't go to sleep unless he was there. He was wet through with the dew and quite earthy from diving into the burrows the boy had made for him in the flower bed, and Nana grumbled as she rubbed him off with a corner of her apron. "You must have your old bunny," she said. "Fancy all that fuss for a toy." The boy sat up in bed and stretched out his hands. "Give me my bunny," he said. "You mustn't say that. He isn't a toy. He's real." When the little rabbit heard that, he was happy, for he knew that what the Skin Horse had said was true at last. The nursery magic had happened to him, and he was a toy no longer. He was real. The boy himself had said it. That night he was almost too happy to sleep, and so much love stirred in his little sawdust heart that it almost burst. And into his boot-button eyes, that had long ago lost their polish, there came a look of wisdom and beauty, so that even Nana noticed it next morning when she picked him up and said, "I declare if that old bunny hasn't got quite a knowing expression." That was a wonderful summer. Near the house where they lived there was a wood, and in the long June evenings the boy liked to go there after tea to play. He took the Velveteen Rabbit with him, and before he wandered off to pick flowers or play at brigands among the trees, he always made the rabbit a little nest somewhere along the bracken, where he would be quite cozy, for he was a kind-hearted little boy, and he liked Bunny to be comfortable. One evening, while the rabbit was lying there alone, watching the ants that ran to and fro between his velvet paws in the grass, he saw two strange beings creep out of the tall bracken near him. They were rabbits, like himself, but quite furry and brand new. They must have been very well made, for their seams didn't show at all, and they changed shape in a strange way when they moved. One minute they were long and thin, and the next minute fat and bunchy, instead of always staying the same like he did. Their feet padded softly on the ground, and they crept quite close to him, twitching their noses while the rabbit stared hard to see which side the clockwork struck out. Okay, all right. Their feet padded softly on the ground, and they crept quite close to him, twitching their noses, while the rabbit stared hard to see which side the clockwork stuck out, for he knew that people who jump generally have something to wind them up, but he couldn't see it. They were evidently a new kind of rabbit altogether. They stared at him, and the little rabbit stared back, and all the time their noses twitched. "Why don't you get up and play with us?" one of them asked. "I don't feel like it," said the rabbit, for he didn't want to explain that he had no clockwork. "Oh," said the furry rabbit, "it's as easy as anything." And he gave a big hop sideways and stood on his hind legs. "I don't believe you can," he said. "I can," said the little rabbit. "I can jump higher than anything." He meant when the boy threw him, but of course he didn't want to say so. "Can you hop on your hind legs?" asked the furry rabbit. That was a dreadful question, for the Velveteen Rabbit had no hind legs at all. The back of him was made all in one piece, like a pincushion. He sat still in the bracken and hoped that the other rabbits wouldn't notice. "I don't want to," he said again. Okay. See, that sounded like I screwed up, but I didn't screw up, and I can prove it, because if you listen to it when it comes out, that won't be there. All right, here we go. He sat still in the bracken and hoped that the other rabbits wouldn't notice. "I don't want to," he said again. But the wild rabbits have very sharp eyes, and this one stretched out his neck and looked. "He hasn't got any hind legs," he called out. "Fancy a rabbit without any hind legs!" And he began to laugh. "I have," cried the little rabbit. "I have got hind legs. I'm sitting on them." "Then stretch them out and show me, like this," said the wild rabbit, and he began to whirl round and dance till the little rabbit got quite dizzy. "I don't like dancing," he said. "I'd rather sit still." But all the while he was longing to dance, for a funny new tickly feeling ran through him, and he felt he would give anything in the world to be able to jump about like these rabbits did. The strange rabbit stopped dancing and came quite close. He came so close this time that his long whiskers brushed the Velveteen Rabbit's ear. And then he wrinkled his nose suddenly and flattened his ears and jumped backwards. "He doesn't smell right," he exclaimed. "He isn't a rabbit at all. He isn't real." "I am real," said the little rabbit. "I am real. The boy said so." And he nearly began to cry. Just then there was a sound of footsteps, and the boy ran past near them, and with a stamp of feet and a flash of white tails, the two strange rabbits disappeared. "Come back and play with me," called the little rabbit. "Oh, please come back. I know I'm real." But there was no answer. Only the little ants ran to and fro, and the bracken swayed gently where the two strangers had passed. The Velveteen Rabbit was all alone. "Oh dear," he thought. "Why did they run away like that? Why wouldn't they stop and talk to me?" For a long time he lay very still, watching the bracken and hoping they would come back. But they never returned, and presently the sun sank lower, and the little white moths fluttered out, and the boy came and carried him home. Weeks passed, and the little rabbit grew very old and shabby, but the boy loved him just as much. He loved him so hard that he loved all his whiskers off, and the pink lining to his ears turned gray, and his brown spots faded. He even began to lose his shape, and he scarcely looked like a rabbit anymore, except to the boy. To him, he was always beautiful, and that was all the little rabbit cared about. He didn't mind how he looked to other people, because the nursery magic had made him real, and when you are real, shabbiness doesn't matter. And then, one day, the boy was ill. His face grew very flushed, and he talked in his sleep, and his little body was so hot that it burned the rabbit when he held him close. Strange people came and went in the nursery, and a light burned all night. And through it all, the little Velveteen Rabbit lay there, hidden from sight under the bedclothes, and he never stirred. Are you following this?
That was probably a spot where there was a picture in there, and because I had to delete some of those. Let's see, he never stirred, for he...
Oh, there we go.
It's probably...
Where he was afraid. See?
Yep.
Okay. Strange people came and went in the nursery, and a light burned all night. And through it all, the little Velveteen Rabbit lay there, hidden from sight under the bedclothes, and he never stirred, for he was afraid that if they found him, someone might take him away, and he knew that the boy needed him. It was a long, weary time, for the boy was too ill to play, and the little rabbit found it rather dull with nothing to do all day long. But he snuggled down patiently and looked forward to the time when the boy would be well again, and they would go out in the garden amongst the flowers and butterflies and play splendid games in the raspberry thicket just like they used to. All sorts of delightful things he planned, and while the boy lay half asleep, he crept up close to the pillow and whispered them in his ear. And presently the fever turned, and the boy got better. He was able to sit up in bed and look at picture books, while the little rabbit cuddled close at his side. And one day they let him get up and get dressed. It was a bright sunny morning, and the window stood wide open. They had carried the boy out onto the balcony wrapped in a shawl, and the little rabbit lay tangled up in the bedclothes, thinking. The boy was going to the seaside tomorrow. Everything was arranged, and now it only remained to carry out the doctor's orders. They talked about it all while the little rabbit lay under the bedclothes, with just his head peeping out, and listened. The room was to be disinfected, and all the books and toys the boy had played with in bed must be burned. "Hooray," thought the little rabbit. "Tomorrow we shall go to the seaside." Oh, let me back that up. I didn't do the hooray in rabbit voice. The bed must be burned. "Hooray," thought the little rabbit. "Tomorrow we shall go to the seaside." For the boy had often talked of the seaside, and he wanted very much to see the big waves coming in, and the tiny crabs and the sand castles. Just then Nana caught sight of him. "How about this old bunny?" she asked. "That," the doctor said, "why, it's a mass of scarlet fever germs. Burn it at once." "What nonsense. Get him a new one. He mustn't have that any more." And so the little rabbit was put into a sack with the old picture books and a lot of rubbish, and carried out to the end of the garden behind the fowl house. That was a fine place to make a bonfire, only the gardener was too busy just then to attend to it. He had the potatoes to dig and the green peas to gather, but next morning he promised to come quite early and burn the whole lot. That night, the boy slept in a different bedroom, and he had a new bunny to sleep with him. It was a splendid bunny, all white plush with real glass eyes, but the boy was too excited to care very much about it, for tomorrow he was going to the seaside, and that in itself was such a wonderful thing he could think of nothing else. And while the boy was asleep, dreaming of the seaside, the little rabbit lay among the old picture books in the corner behind the fowl house, and he felt very lonely. The sack had been left untied, and so by wriggling a bit he was able to get his head through the opening and look out. He was shivering just a little bit, for he had always been used to sleeping in a proper bed, and by this time his coat had worn so thin and threadbare from hugging there was no longer any protection to him. Nearby he could see the thicket of raspberry canes growing tall and close like a tropical jungle, in whose shadows he had played with the boy on bygone mornings. He thought of those long sunlit hours in the garden, how happy they were, and a great sadness came over him. He seemed to see them all pass before him, each more beautiful than the other. The fairy huts in the flower bed, the quiet evenings in the woods when he lay in the bracken and the little ants ran over his paws. The wonderful day when he first knew that he was real. He thought of the skin horse, so wise and gentle, and all that he had told him. Of what use was it to be loved and lose one's beauty and become real if it all ended like this? And a tear, a real tear, trickled down his little shabby velvet nose and fell to the ground. And then a strange thing happened, for where the tear had fallen, a flower grew out of the ground, a mysterious flower not at all like any that grew in the garden. It had slender green leaves the color of emeralds, and in the center of the leaves a blossom like a golden cup. It was so beautiful that the little rabbit forgot to cry and just lay there watching it. And presently the blossom opened, and out of it stepped a fairy. She was quite the loveliest fairy in the whole world. Her dress was of pearl and dewdrops, and there were flowers round her neck and in her hair, and her face was like the most perfect flower of all. And she came close to the little rabbit and gathered him up in her arms and kissed him on his velveteen nose that was all damp from crying. "Little rabbit," she said, "don't you know who I am?" The rabbit looked up at her, and it seemed to him that he had seen her face before, but he couldn't think where. "I am the nursery magic fairy," she said. "I take care of all the playthings that the children have loved. When they're old and worn out and the children don't need them any more, then I come and take them away with me and turn them into real." "Wasn't I real before?" asked the little rabbit. "You were real to the boy," the fairy said, "because he loved you. Now you shall be real to everyone." And she held the little rabbit close in her arms and flew with him into the woods. It was light now, for the moon had risen. All the forest was beautiful, and the fronds of the bracken shone like frosted silver. In the open glade between the tree trunks, the wild rabbits danced with their shadows on the velvet grass. But when they saw the fairy, they all stopped dancing and stood round in a ring to stare at her. "I've brought you a new playfellow," the fairy said. "You must be very kind to him and teach him all he needs to know about Rabbitland, for he is going to live with you forever and ever." And she kissed the little rabbit again and put him down on the grass. "Run and play, little rabbit," she said. But the little rabbit sat quite still for a moment and never moved. For when he saw all the wild rabbits dancing around him, he suddenly remembered about his hind legs, and he didn't want them to see
that he was made all in one piece. He did not know that when the fairy kissed him that last time, she had changed him altogether. And he might have sat there a long time, too shy to move, if he just hadn't felt something tickle his nose. And before he thought about what he was doing, he lifted his hind toe to scratch it. And he found that he actually had hind legs. Instead of dingy velveteen, he had brown fur, soft and shiny. His ears twitched by themselves, and his whiskers were so long they brushed the grass. He gave one leap, and the joy of using those hind legs was so great that he went springing about the ground on them, jumping sideways and whirling round like the others did. And he grew so excited that when at last he did stop to look for the fairy, she had gone. He was a real rabbit at last, at home with the other rabbits. Autumn passed, and winter. And in the spring, when the days grew warm and sunny, the boy went out to play in the woods behind the house. And while he was playing, 2 rabbits crept out from the bracken and peered at him. One of them was brown all over, but the other had strange markings under his fur, as though long ago he had been spotted, and the spots still showed through. And about his little soft nose and his round black eyes there was something familiar, so that the boy thought to himself, "Why, he looks just like my old bunny that was lost when I had scarlet fever." But he never knew that it really was his own bunny, come back to look at the child who had first helped him to be real. The end. The Velveteen Rabbit, written by Marjorie Williams, is a Wisdom Harbor audio production. Produced by Matt Limpert, narrated by Andy Andrews. Okay, I didn't cry. See, those people left because they were afraid they were going to cry, is what was happening. I'm thinking we might need to go find them out there and just make sure they're okay. There you go, wiping your eyes. I know.
I don't know how my mom ever read that to me as a kid.
What?
I said, I don't know how my mom ever read that to me as a kid.
I mean, Polly would read. Adam came home one day from school and he had to do Where the Red Fern Grows. And she just started crying. I mean, just like the first paragraph, she's crying, and I'm like, "You're not going to get through this." And after the third night of doing this, Adam came in with Kleenex. Said, "Just wanted you to be ready, Mom." Oh my God! Isn't that the name of Where the Red Fern Grows? Yeah. So that's like hound dog stuff. Oh my gosh! What would be the cryingest story? What? I'll tell you something really weird. I don't know if you've ever read or heard my book Socks for Christmas, but I wrote that thing like 25 years ago, and I'm telling you, for the first and so when it came out, I was having to read it everywhere, and I'm telling you, for the first 10 years, I couldn't get through it. I could not get through it. It was just like bizarre. But I don't know. What other stories can you think of that made you cry?
Got Tammy said Old Yeller.
Old Yeller. Oh yeah. Old Yeller.
Chris said
Old Yeller was the first of killing the dog movies. I gotta tell you. I'll tell you this story, then we'll go. Chris Comer, the book I Will Love You Forever. There's some. We thought Velveteen Rabbit would be great on the Captain's Kids doc for Wisdom Harbor, but I gotta tell you, there's some kid stuff that is so lame. I'm just And I got to tell you, what is the lamest of all time is Goodnight Moon. I know people love it. I know it's sold a jillion copies, but I hate it. I hate that book. And when the boys would bring that to me, I would go, no, Mama told me not to read this to y'all tonight. Because this thing is like, you know what I'm talking about, right? How can somebody, I mean, there are great writers in the world. Dr. Seuss and great children's writers. Is Your Mama a Llama? I can think of tons of great kids books, but...
The Salamander Room. You ever read that?
No.
That's a good one.
You ever read Skippy John Jones?
No.
It's about a Chihuahua who thinks he's a Siamese cat. And so he eats, and he is Mexican because he's a Chihuahua, so he eats mice and beans. It's a great kid's book. But Goodnight Moon, I mean, good night, clock, good night, rug, good night, lamp, good night, picture on the wall. Are you kidding me? I mean, and people are hearing that going, I'll buy that. I'll buy that book. Good night, desk. Good night, curtains. Sheesh. Oh my God. All right, so let me tell you this one. Sorry, see, people are doing dog dead movies. My dog's scared. People are giving us dog dead movies. But I got to tell you, I've got a cousin, and Mary Ann lives in Atlanta. And Mary Ann is one of the funniest people. She was 14 when I was born. And so she's like my greatest relative. And she is funny as she can be. She's crazy as a run-over dog. And so speaking of dogs, her husband, Tyler, and Marion went to see the movie. Remember Turner and Hooch? Remember that? Okay, it was Tom Hanks and the big slobbery dog. And so Mary Ann, they were at the 5 o'clock movie. And when they came out, people were lined up, ready to go in the movie. And Mary Ann was so mad. She was like, the dog dies? I got to get through the whole movie, and the dog dies. Why do you always have to kill the dog? You know, put that little part in there about, there's his puppies. That didn't do anything, but because the dog died. I mean, we paid money. We sat in here for 2 hours, and the dog died. And she went out of the theater, and those people in line, she said, hey, I'm just going to tell you, if you're expecting to be great, the dog dies at the end, okay? Hooch, the dog. He dies at the end. He's dead. And Tyler's trying to pull her out. I wish I'd had just a video of that. Just a video. All right, you guys. That's it for today. We'll do something meaner on Thursday. And won't read a kid's book. We'll do something mean and hurtful. Okay. See you Thursday. Bye-bye.